All right, this is where we go. Take two. Two, right there. There we go. So here we go with take two. We will try again and see if our internet will hold up here in Nevada. And if not, I apologize. And we'll hopefully, I'll do one in the middle of the week. Let's just plan on that, right? When I'm actually back home and have the front porch and the wonderful fire. And we'll be back in our regular setting with great internet, and we'll do it then. But anyway, let me try this. Let's at least try to rattle off some of the things to catch up on. First, election, then we'll talk COVID fascism, then I got some good news for you for what's coming in 2021. Election, first of all, this suit in Pennsylvania filed yesterday by the Trump campaign I think could be critical. It could be the one we've been waiting for because it essentially does what the Texas lawsuit was going to do, but from the Trump campaign withstanding without question. And, of course, it's only Pennsylvania, so it doesn't take care of Michigan, Wisconsin, and the other places where this is also needed. But anyway, bottom line is that's an important one, and we'll keep an eye on that this week. It has a request for some significant deadlines just in the next couple of days. So, I'm hoping to see something. But, look, I've said this many times. The courts are filled with cowards. They have failed us completely this year, both with the COVID fascism and with the election debacle. So don't hold your breath on the Supreme Court doing the right thing. But there are still three paths that remain for this election not being stolen, for us to actually get to the rightful winner and to uphold the rule of law and the Constitution. That first path is the legislatures. They still have time. They absolutely have the constitutional right and power to do so, and they have the responsibility and duty to do so. So call your state legislators. Tell them to do their job. When I say your state legislators, it's Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Georgia, Arizona, and Nevada. Those are the ones that really, really matter. And those legislators absolutely have the right to do this. They can call themselves into session. They don't have to wait on the governor. I agree with Rob Nadelson, fantastic constitutional scholar, who says, and I agree, that this is a particular constitutional power given by the people through the Constitution direct to the legislature. Doesn't involve the governor, so they should be able to call themselves in for this. So anyway, the legislature is still the right place to fight this battle. They should be the ones to do this, and if they would do their job, it would take away all the uncertainty. Right now we've got incredible uncertainty with what would happen either with a court challenge or with Congress on January 6th. There's no uncertainty with what the legislature can do. That is an absolute plenary power given by the Constitution. The Supreme Court has recognized that, so it would be upheld. They've recognized it 3 times. Last time this summer, and then 20 years ago in Bush v. Gore. So anyway, bottom line is legislatures, that's your number one option for getting this right. Second option is the courts, which, as I said, we have cowards on most of our courts, including the Supreme Court, and so I don't expect them to do their duty and do this right. But you know what? They may come through in the clutch at the last minute and surprise us all. So I'm praying that would be the case. But again, that's not where my hope is. Of course, my hope is in the Lord. It's not in any of these political outcomes. But in terms of the other path for righting the wrongs of this election, the last one is January 6th. I've already talked about this quite a bit, so I don't want to rehash, but I'll run through those things very quickly. What happens on January 6th is that the ballots will be opened from all the states and the electors that they sent. And the ones that have 2 sets of electors, those are the ones most likely to be challenged, and it takes 1 House member, 1 Senate member, according to the federal law. Now, listen, this federal law that everybody's talking about was passed in like 1887. It was about 10 years after the 1876 debacle of an election, the one that's most like the one we're dealing with now. And it's a very confusing law. Nobody agrees. The only thing the experts agree on is that the experts don't agree on how it actually works, whether you have to have both the House and the Senate object in order to reject a state's electors, or whether it takes both chambers, or how that objection will take place. The Constitution doesn't speak to any of that. All the Constitution says is that the vice president will be the one presiding over that whole thing, and that the House and Senate will meet in a joint session to determine this. So, you could have a whole new set of rules that's put forth that day in terms of how this is done, and that federal law could be completely ignored because it doesn't trump the Constitution, no pun intended, or pun intended, depending on your perspective. So I think January 6th is a wild card. We don't know what's going to happen. There's already been, several congressmen say they're willing to object. There hasn't been a senator that's officially said, I will object. Tommy Tuberville from Alabama has hinted that he would do that. He's going to be a new senator sworn in on January 3rd. He's a non-politician. He's got guts. He's a leader. He's a football coach. So I think he may be he may be the one to lead the charge on this, which is great. But frankly, there should be a lot of U.S. senators object to in fact, I put it this way. I will stand by this all the way. If you're a United States senator or a United States congressman and you don't object to Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Georgia, then you are saying that you are okay with with breaking the Constitution and breaking state law and allowing bureaucrats and governors to be dictators and make law on their own. If you do not object to these electors from these states, you are signing off on the lawlessness and you're asking for more of it. So you Republicans need to get a backbone and object to these electors from at least those 4 states and potentially also Nevada and Arizona with all the irregularities that have been shown there. So January 6th is the big day. We have a few weeks to help infuse some backbone into those senators by making those phone calls, by encouraging them to do so. There are some obvious folks that I think are likely to object. Ted Cruz, Rand Paul, Josh Hawley. There's a few others that I think Mike Lee, maybe. I don't know. I mean, some of these guys really do have a bad habit of misinterpreting and seizing on some reason why they don't want to rock the boat or makes that Here's the deal. Some of those guys rock the boat a lot, and so they look for an opportunity to now balance that out by looking like they're being reasonable and trying to get people to be happy. I hope that doesn't happen with any of our conservative champions. If there was ever a time to stand up, now is the time, and let's hope that happens on January 6th. So that's the biggies on the election. Most everything comes down to January 6th. Still a lot of blocking and tackling and things to happen between now and then. And some opportunities for legislators in the court to step in. So entire first week of January is going to be really interesting to watch. I do want to say on a couple of other things real quick. There's a lot of brouhaha over this executive order Trump signed a couple of years ago dealing with foreign interference in elections. I don't think there's a lot of there. I don't think that at all allows him to, declare martial law or a lot of the things that people are hoping that he would do. I think that's a stretch. I mean, he's even come out and said that's fake news, that he's had meetings about potentially declaring martial law. That's people wanting a Hail Mary pass. People on the right wanting a Hail Mary pass that will solve everything. People on the left wanting to make Trump look like he would have to be, dragged away from the White House. And, it's just not going to happen. The executive order does require reports from the Director of National Intelligence, and Ratcliffe is supposedly working on that and going to do that, and then requires follow-up action by Department of Justice and FBI if there is proof or at least hints of foreign interference. Clearly, there's a chance of all of that. We'll see. I think until the DNI's report comes out, we shouldn't hang our hat on that, and we shouldn't have a lot of hope in that. I don't think this was just my personal opinion. Again, I'm not in these investigations. I don't get to see the behind-the-scenes works, but my personal opinion is this is not so much foreign interference as it is domestic interference. It's stuff that happened, out front. This is not about the stuff that happened behind the scenes as much. There was a bunch of that going on, but the big stuff happened out front. When you have lawlessness, when you allow governors to make up the law on their own with no accountability and no authority, when they get to rewrite the statutes and the legislature not have a say, when the legislature is the one empowered with that, both by the Constitution and state law, that's your real problem. So this is not so much, I realize China we are at war with China in terms of a cyber war and all of these different things, and I do believe there's all kinds of subversive things going on, but that's not the biggest problem. The biggest problem is our own people, our own inability to stand up to the lawlessness and the cheating. So we need to start with our own house. We need to start with Republicans. We need to start with conservatives and telling them to take a stand that this is a hill on which to die. Somebody tweeted this out. Maybe I can't remember who it was, some conservative congressman. This is not just a hill on which to die. This is the hill on which to die. Not because it's Trump or Biden, but because if you let this go, if you don't fight this, if you don't investigate this, if you don't object, you're saying, give me more of the same. You're literally saying, I'd like some more, please. My kids are not going to like that I did that. But you're literally asking for more. That was kind of cool. I'd like some more, please. You're literally asking for us to have all kinds of lawlessness and elections we cannot trust at all for decades to come. So if that's what you want, then, senators, then don't object. Let it go. John Cornyn, how do I say this nicely? You politician, there, I'll say it that way. Already he's saying, let's just move on and tell these people not to object. You're such a give me a break, man. Come on. For once, have a backbone. For once, stand up for truth and justice and not your own political career. So there's a lot of others like that across the country, but I was so upset when I saw Cornyn's comments and making it look like the people that might object on January 6th were somehow the crazy ones. How about you're the crazy one for literally giving up this ground, ceding this ground, and handing it over to the Marxists and handing it over to the people that want to destroy our country? Texas elected you to stand up. All right, enough about Cornyn, or I'm going to be in a really bad mood all night long. So enough about the election. Let's move on. Censorship. It's unbelievable. Did you see that YouTube took down a United States hearing? This is a Senate hearing, a United States Senate hearing. We're going to now censor our own legislature having a hearing. They literally took down the testimony of one of Trump's attorneys testifying before the United States Senate. That is now going to be censored. You were fine with letting these crazy people come forward and make all kinds of rape accusations against Supreme Court justice nominees with no evidence, and you leave that up, but you're not going to allow for the testimony of an attorney, a licensed attorney. Now, if they're absolutely lying, they'll lose their license. Let them, put it out there and let them say whatever they're going to say. And if they're lying, prove they were lying and go after their license. I cannot believe how far Google and YouTube and Twitter are willing to go to silence not just some individual. They're taking down our United States Senate's hearings. Folks, we are living in 1984. This is the Orwellian society that we have all warned about for years when we saw just little hints of it, and now it's here. So the censorship is over the top. You got to know that. That means it's harder on you and for me to find truth, and you have to seek it. You've got to select very carefully where you get your information, or it's going to be completely tailored to allow for only one side of the equation to have their say. You need to hear both sides. You need to hear debate. We need to come, let us reason together. That's what makes a society work, and we are moving away from that, and it's going to be up to us, we the people, to stop that and bring back freedom of speech. So watch out for the censorship. Let's talk a little COVID. I think for a moment we need to step back. Let's just use a little common sense here for a moment. I'm going to hopefully be producing a new Constitutional Minute that sort of wraps up 2020 and the whole COVID and the Constitution, but just some things on my mind as I'm beginning to prepare for making that. Just common sense first before we look at the law. If COVID was what they are making it out to be, if it was so bad that we should shut down society, force 2-year-olds to wear masks on airplanes, all the idiotic things that we're doing, if it was really that bad, then just use your common sense for a minute. There would be millions of dead protesters from all of the big protests this summer. There would be millions of dead people from going to church or going to Costco or going to wherever. Just use your common sense. If this thing was what they say it is, then every rally, every protest, whether it was those protesting the George Floyd thing or those of us protesting the COVID crackdowns, you would have so many deaths as a result of that. And we do not have more deaths in 2020 than we have had on average for the last 5 or 6 years. And if I've read the data right, not even in the last few years, this is no worse than the flu has been. It's weird. I get that. It's a deadly virus. For those that it does go after, it does so with a vengeance. And it is worse for some people that have experienced it compared to the flu in the past. It can be really yucky for some people. For other people, it's a day of headaches or whatever. But for some people, it is really ugly and takes a while to get over. So I don't mean it's not worse in terms of that. I mean it's not worse in terms of overall impact on society, and certainly not worthy of the craziness that we're doing. Here's what we know. The masks do not work, and if they did, then Hawaii and California would have the lowest numbers of anybody, and New York, but yet they have the worst, right? I mean, California and New York is about half of all the new cases, and they've had the masks forever. They've had the shutdowns forever. They're preventing people from even eating outside. They are destroying businesses left and right. They're destroying their state is what they're doing, and yet their cases are still going through the roof. COVID is going to COVID. This is nature. This is not something you can control. Government is not God. It cannot stop the flu any more than it can stop COVID. So let's use our common sense. No increase in overall deaths. The masks do not work. There is no asymptomatic spread, which means if you are not showing symptoms, it is extremely unlikely. When I say extremely, I'm talking 0.00 something, that you would spread the virus to someone else. Even if you have it, if you're not showing a fever, if you don't have any of the symptoms, same if you had the flu, you wouldn't go see your friends and family and shake hands and hug because you wouldn't want to give them the flu. So just use your common sense just like you normally would. If you're sick, stay home. If you're not sick, get out there and live your life. So without asymptomatic spread, we should not be shutting anything down. Nothing should be shut down right now. And the kids do not spread it. There's zero evidence of the kids spreading it. Other nations have figured that out and put their kids back in school. Why are we such imbeciles and so arrogant that we are unwilling to admit we got it wrong and start opening the schools? It's just unbelievable. And the damage to the kids is off the charts. It is going to be felt for generations. I strongly encourage you to listen to Daniel Horowitz's program from Friday. The doctor that he has on for most of the program, it will make you fighting mad to realize what we're doing to the children, what we are doing this is going to take a generation. Think about that. We have taken something not worse than the flu and turned it into a global crisis that will have repercussions for more than a generation. What this is doing to our kids is unbelievable. Not just not going to school. The fact that these little bitty kids are only seeing people with masks on, not seeing them smile, not seeing their facial expressions. We are cruel. We are cruel and we're idiots. We are the most highly educated idiots in history. It's got to stop. The damage to even our social interactions with each other is incalculable. The animosity that it has created in our communities, the deadly looks I get everywhere for not wearing a mask, it's causing this friction that was completely unnecessary. And I'll say the damage to our economy, I'm not an economist. I do have a finance degree, but I'll say this. I think the damage to our economy is going to be worse than any war, any famine, any financial crash we've ever had in our history, and maybe all of those combined. It is going to be that bad. We've already spent $10 trillion. There's no telling what more we're going to spend. The businesses that we've killed, the life savings, it's just incalculable. All because of a virus that 99.9% of people survive. That if you're under 80 and don't have comorbidities is no threat to you whatsoever. And yet we're staying in our homes. We're not going to church and worshiping together. We're afraid to shake hands with people. It's just, it kills me. I just cannot believe we've done this. And last thing I'll say on the COVID thing is the vaccine. Look, I mean, we're... It's just you can't make this stuff up. You've probably seen the video of the nurse. She gets the vaccine and a few minutes later passes out on live television. You cannot make this stuff up. Another hospital had 5 people with reactions that they were giving it to in their hospital, staff at the hospital, so they halted giving the vaccine at that particular hospital. I am not I'm all about you decide for yourself. But I'm treating this vaccine just like I would any other vaccine. I'm going to use my brain and I'm going to say, why would I get a vaccine for something that I have a 99.9% chance of recovering just fine, even if I get the virus? And I think I've already had the virus anyway. And I would rather have the virus and have longer immunity than get a vaccine that has less immunity and has potential side effects. So I'm just using my common sense on that, just like I would with any other vaccine. You can do what you want. I think you should have the right to get the vaccine, and you should have the right to say no to the vaccine. But you can bet that we are not going to have the right to say no to the vaccine. They're going to do everything they can to force it on you. And it could mean no traveling, no getting on any airplane as soon as this thing has been widely accepted. And so get ready for a communist, Soviet Union style atmosphere at the airport, and show me your papers is going to happen everywhere you go. And if you don't have your vaccine papers, there's going to be places that you cannot go. And I'm prepared to say, fine, I won't go unless we figure out some sort of black market way to create papers. And if you find that, then please private message me somehow that in some way that the NSA can't see it, and I will be glad to share that with friends and family. Okay, damage to our economy. Let's see, I mentioned that. What am I missing on vaccine? I mean, on COVID? Anything on the sanctuary counties and cities. Be thinking about that. I've already mentioned it a couple of times. I'm going to have a great opportunity to actually do some training with Daniel Horowitz here tomorrow, and we're going to be talking a little bit about that and be getting together with our buddy Mark Meckler and the Bartons and others. We're going to be talking about a declaration of American independence for counties and cities and states, and that is the only way that we're going to have any freedom, folks. I'm telling you, you're going to need a sanctuary county close to you, and you need to be thinking about moving to that county or making your own county or city a sanctuary county or city, and perhaps even moving to another state. That's, I'm not telling anybody you ought to move to a particular place. Most people, I'm hoping, will fight where they've been planted. Wherever God has you, be faithful there unless he's nudging you and saying, we've already lost this territory, move somewhere else. My personal feeling is that if Christians will just get engaged, and that's the good news I was mentioning in the post, there's some good things coming in 2021, and if the church gets engaged in 2021, we can take the nation back. We can have freedom in all 50 states, and I think we need to fight in all 50 states. And if the church steps up, we can win in all 50 states, but that is a big if, and we're just going to have to see what happens. We're going to put the tools out there. We're going to give every Christian in the country the opportunity to be a catalyst for restoration of biblical principles and constitutional principles in their community. And that includes you. We're going to give you the opportunity to do that as well, and then we'll see what happens as people respond to that. But I think every state is going to need a few of these sanctuary counties to just get through the next year and not have to live in COVID fascism for another year. Speaking of that, those tools that we're going to be giving you, we had a great, unbelievable, off-the-charts filming this last week with Kirk Cameron and Rob McCoy and some of our Constitution coaches, Scarlett Lanny, Ken Davis, Joe Messina all came in. It was phenomenal, folks. I cannot wait to share this footage with you. Absolutely incredible. I'm telling you, this Biblical Citizenship in Modern America course that's going to come out in a few weeks, I believe God's going to use it to awaken the church and amass literally millions of citizens that will do their duty and help restore our biblical principles and values and our constitutional principles and values. So get ready. 2021 is going to be great. I believe we're going to come out of this awakened. The other side is going to do everything they can to clamp down even harder. But I think it is awakening the giant within America. So get ready for some good stuff. And last thing, we'll go to questions. Georgia is close. Folks, saw some polling data that, it's like 50-48, 52-48 on those two races in Georgia. So get out there, and if you're in Georgia, man, go multiply your vote. We had a great weekend there, weekend before last, with the Bartons and with Kirk Cameron and Charlie Kirk and Congressman Loudermilk, Congressman Heiss, former Congresswoman Michelle Bachmann, Brad Stein, put a great crew together, barnstormed the state, turned out a lot of folks that are getting registered, that got registered, and now hopefully early voting right now, but also multiplying themselves by getting their friends and family to show up and vote. If you're in Georgia, please vote. We need these 2 Senate seats. We've got to hold the Senate. And I'll say this, we got to hold the Senate with a Republican majority, but then one of the things we've got to be looking towards in 2022, 2024, and 2026, all right? Over the next 6 years, we have to win at least 51 conservative Senate seats. So every member of the U.S. Senate is going to be up for re-election in the next 6 years. That's where I'm hoping to concentrate, folks, for big battles, because if we can have not just a Republican majority in the Senate, that's not enough, folks. They're going to let too much go by. It's better than having a Democrat majority, so it's very important we win these Senate seats in Georgia. But that is a marginal victory. The real victory is we have to get constitutional conservatives elected, 51 of them in the U.S. Senate, and that can be the big game changer. If we can truly restore the Senate, then we can get the federal government back in its box, and then we can decide which states we want to live in where we can be free and let the left have a few states to have chaos in, and that's how we can survive as a nation without having to have a national divorce. All right, enough of that. What do we got on questions?
Somebody asked what a sanctuary county would be.
Yeah.
And then somebody else was wondering what it would look like to, in this next year, look for more conservative counties to move for. Like, what should you be looking for if you're having to move somewhere?
Excellent.
In terms of the freedoms that you're looking for and all these.
Good question. Okay, sanctuary county. Put this in context of this whole sanctuary city, sanctuary county thing started with illegal immigration. So our first example is a bad example, but it's where basically the city leaders and county leaders in some of these left-leaning states said, we're not going to enforce immigration law. We're going to let illegal immigrants, people that came to the United States illegally, that leapfrogged ahead of 10 million people that were waiting to come in legally. They were following the law, and people that would be good citizens in America. So illegal immigrants broke the law, jumped in front of them. Many of those illegal immigrants clearly breaking the law, they're already a criminal, but obviously a lot of them also gang and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, these sanctuary cities and counties initially were these left-leaning states and places, and we're not going to enforce that federal immigration law. We're going to protect these illegal immigrants and not even let ICE arrest them, and we're certainly not going to turn them in after they've been arrested for something, breaking the law, robbing people, raping kids, whatever they did. They still were unwilling to turn those illegal immigrants over to federal authorities so they could be deported. So that's where the whole concept of sanctuary cities and counties happened. Well, then a few years ago, some Second Amendment folks said, hey, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. If they can do that, then we're going to have sanctuary counties where we don't implement any of these ridiculous federal firearms laws. So if they're going to pass laws outlawing my firearm that is protected by the Constitution, which means all firearms, by the way, there is no there's no exception in the Second Amendment for, it doesn't say the right of the people to keep and bear arms that aren't automatic or that don't fire so many rounds per minute or whatever. It says the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Anyway, so sanctuary counties and cities have adopted really strong Second Amendment language to say we're not inside this county. In our jurisdiction, the sheriff will not enforce any of those federal laws that would take away firearms or prevent people from living out their Second Amendment rights. And that's really caught fire. That's happened like all over the country, not just in places like Texas. I mean, there's sanctuary counties in California, all over the country. So it's been an interesting model to see. So what we're saying is let's do the same thing for a Declaration of American Rights and Liberties, specifically saying no COVID fascism inside this county. So you've got to have a sheriff and you've got to have a majority of your county commissioners that are willing to sign off on that are willing to say enough is enough, no more mask mandates, no more shutting down our schools or our public buildings or any of that kind of stuff, no more infringing upon an individual's freedom to move freely. We're not going to force face diapers on people. We're not going to infringe on your bodily integrity. I mean, we're going to let people live in freedom. So you need at least, in Texas, that would be 3 out of 5 commissioners. In Texas, we have 4 commissioners and a county judge. Some of them actually do have court, so they actually serve as a judge in a way. But county judge typically is more like a mayor of the county in Texas. So for us, there's 5 on the commissioner's court. So we need 3 of those 5 to say we're going to be a sanctuary county. And then the sheriff is the most important because the sheriff is the one that has the authority to say, no, we're not going to arrest people for that sort of thing. That's what we mean by a sanctuary county. Same thing would apply with a city. You need the city council, a majority of the city council, to adopt this sanctuary policy and then inform and require of their chief of police and the police department to not enforce any federal mask mandate should Joe Biden be sworn in on January 20th, or even a state mask mandate should Emperor Abbott go back on his word and implement more of those kind of things in Texas. So anyway, that's what we mean by sanctuary city, sanctuary county. So what you can be looking for is, what I've started doing is I've started searching how a particular, like I'm looking at several counties in Texas. I'm trying to decide where we're going to make our stand. I'm just going to be honest with you. You've got to decide for yourself where you're going to make your stand. We're debating that right now as a family, where we're going to make our stand. We're looking at several counties in Texas that we think would be good places to make that stand and to have a good sanctuary county. So what I'm looking for, and maybe you look for the same in your state, is a county that voted overwhelmingly for Donald Trump. That's a good indicator. If they're a 70% or better on Donald Trump for that county, that's probably a pretty good sign. You've got the political will in that county to back you up on protecting the Constitution. It's not just COVID fascism. This Declaration of Rights is going to deal with the Second Amendment. It's going to deal with COVID fascism. It's going to deal with election integrity, making sure that in that county they have good election laws implementation, depending on what the state allows for in their particular state. So anyway, I'm looking at how well did Trump do in that county? How well did Republicans do overall? And what have the county leaders done in 2020. So even if you've got a 75% Republican, 80% Trump vote county, but you've got a lousy sheriff and a lousy county judge and commissioners that bought the COVID idiocy hook, line, and sinker and implemented all kinds of crazy stuff, then that's probably not going to be a good county to start, unless you've got overwhelming support and those officials are willing to say, I was wrong. I mean, I was scared like everybody else. And there's some honest public officials that have already done that and are willing to do that. And look, I don't fault any public servant that got this wrong in March and even in April and maybe in May. But by June, you should have been reversing course, just like Ron DeSantis did in Florida and saying, hey, we got it wrong. No more. No more shutdowns. No more mask mandates. There's some, lousy politicians like Greg Abbott that now they're saying no more shutdowns and lives are being destroyed without admitting he's the one that destroyed those lives. I mean, that's shameful to me. He's blaming everybody else. It's his fault. This is absolutely in Texas. The Texas disaster right now is Greg Abbott's fault, and he should be held accountable for it. Unfortunately, some people don't understand that because they haven't watched it close enough, and he's going to weasel out of it and be able to act like I'm a champion for liberty because no more lockdowns in America. Well, then lift all of your other mandates. Open everything right now and get rid of these mask mandates and don't allow any county or city in Texas to have a mask mandate. If you're a true champion of liberty, Greg Abbott, that's what you would do. He's not going to do that, but he's still going to act like he's the champion of liberty. Anyway, what I'm saying is your county commissioners and sheriff and police chief and all that may have gotten it wrong in the beginning, but call them and ask them, are you going to reverse course now? Look at the science. Look at what's happening. And keep your eyes and ears peeled. Watch our Facebook page. Watch our social media. Watch our website and our emails. We'll start sending out. We're working on sort of a manifesto and the kind of things that you can take to those leaders and say, look, here is the science. These are the facts. What are you going to do with this here in our local neighborhood, in our community? Are you willing to go into 2021 and say 2020 is over, the pandemic is over, we are moving forward in freedom, and then see what they do? And if they're willing, then maybe that will be your sanctuary county. If they're not, and you've got political will, have recall elections, throw them out. City elections are coming up in Texas in May. Filing deadline's January 15th or so. So right now is the time in Texas for people to start thinking about running for city council. We need good, common sense, rational constitutionalists to run. So please pray about it. Maybe you need to run for mayor or city council in your community. These races most of the time are won by a handful of votes. You can win. And we're going to have a campaign coach program at patriotacademy.com to help you with that. It won't be ready till, probably second week of January. So we're working on that right now. It may be a little later than that. It'll be ready in time for you to run a decent campaign, but you may have to have already filed. So be praying about that. Talk to people around you. See if they say, yeah, you should do that. You need confirmation. I always encourage people, if God's in it, there'll be confirmation. Either other people will come to you and be asking you to run, or as you talk it up with other people, they'll say, yeah, you should do this. So make sure it's not just you. It's not a pride thing or any of that, but it's definitely that God could use you in that particular role.
We're starting to lose our internet, so I think we might want to close it out.
Okay, we're losing internet. I'm being told we're losing internet. Any other questions that I should do before I close out?
Real quick, somebody wants to know where to get the hats, so you're going to plug the thing. And then let's...
Can you type it into the chat? Yeah. www.defender, DEFENDER? Yeah. Dash, that's this one, not slash, dash, gear.com. Defendergear.com, okay? And then you want to use our coupon codes because you'll get 10% off. And then they'll give a contribution to Patriot Academy. So, Patriot 1776. Patriot 1776. Okay. Other questions besides how to get these really cool hats? We have cool shirts and all this other stuff, too, at defendergear.com.
I don't want us to be cut off on the internet here.
Or is it internet's back up? Were we down for a little while?
We were, but it's cool.
I said so many brilliant things while we were down, and it's just lost forever. It's in cyberspace.
Plug the spring frontside trips.
Oh yes. Okay. So listen, we had a great week at Frontsite this last week. Had over 200 people here from all over the nation. We thought it was going to be really cold. First day was windy. I will say the first day was cold, but then we had 3 gorgeous days. So you never know whenever you pick a date to join us at Frontsite, whether it's going to be perfect weather, really cold, really hot, who knows? Okay, so don't schedule your trip based on that. You're rolling the dice no matter what, and I don't say that just because we're in Vegas. It's just true. So we have picked 6 dates. We've put 6 trips on the calendar right now. If you go to our website at patriotacademy.com and click on Constitutional Defense, you put the link, then it has all 6 dates. Now, each of these dates, you have the choice between coming with us for a 3-day course or a 5-day course. If you're going to travel and you're going to make the trip, if you can afford the time, if you can be off for that long, do the 5-day course. Those 2 extra days, it's exponential, your improvement on your shooting and everything else. So try to do the 5-day if you can, but don't let that prevent you from coming. In other words, if you look at the 6 dates and you can only do 3 days, don't say, well, I'll wait until the fall or next. No, you need this training now. I'm telling you, you need to be equipped for the violence that's already out there before 2020. 1.2 million violent crimes in America every year. Don't be that naive, foolish person that Proverbs tells us does not take precautions and has to live with the consequence of their bad decisions. Be that wise and prudent person that Proverbs says foresees danger and takes precautions. This is your precaution, to get trained so that you can defend yourself and your family. That's what we do. It's called constitutional defense. 3-day course or 5-day course. I combine it with the intellectual ammunition, so I'm teaching you the Second Amendment. We're teaching you all about awareness, legal ramifications, how do you prepare yourself for all of those things. But most importantly, you have great fellowship with other patriots from across the nation. If you're looking for a chance to actually have some normalcy, come with us. It's an incredible time. We use 200 to 300 of our own people plus hundreds of others that come from around the country to train, and it's great fellowship. It's a great time. We have a wonderful carve-out in the emergency powers for Nevada, so the governor can't touch us. We've got the ability to do this training without all of their ridiculous nonsense. So watch on the Facebook Live from last Sunday, and you'll see what it's like, that huge classroom we have with all these folks. Anyway, it's a great time. The dates are... Do you have that pulled up by any chance? I'm going to pull it up so I can give the actual dates if you don't have it. You got them? Okay, good. February 7th, that's the start date for our first trip. So if you do 3 days, it'll be 7th through the 9th, and then 7th through the 11th if you do the 5-day. And then our next one starts right after that. So if you can't make that one, then come in on a Friday start. That's a Sunday start. A Thursday start. You can either start on a Sunday or a Thursday with these different courses, and depending on your work schedule and all that, you can decide what's best for you. Looks like we lost the feed. Are you dead on your end?
I'm looking good right here.
Oh, it's just my computer. Okay. So February 7th, that's a start date. February 11th is the next start date. So you'd go Thursday night, Friday, and Saturday for the 3-day course, or stay over Sunday, Monday for the 5-day course. On each of these dates that I'm sharing with you, we start in the evening to give you time to travel in that day. We do a Constitution crash course the first night, and then we're out all day the next few days and Constitution training in the evenings. It's a tough schedule. We work you hard because we want to get as much in a short period of time. So February 7th, February 11th, and then we're pushing into March 21st or March 25th. Those are the next 2 start dates. March 21st is a Sunday night start date. March 25th is a Thursday night start date. And then May 30th for a start date, and then June 6th. For a start date. Okay, so here's your start dates. February 7th, February 11th, March 21st, March 25th, May 30th, or June 6th. Lots of good options for you there. Weather varies, okay? If you prefer cold, come in February. If you prefer super hot, come in June. If you want to try to get, February could turn out to be super nice. March could be super nice. I mean, it's just a gamble any way you go. So just pick the date that works for your schedule, and you will be so glad that you came. I'm telling you, have a great time. If you're a Constitution coach, we will be doing Constitution coach trainings on that first day in February and I think May. Watch your email. Adam's going to be sending out emails to all the Constitution coaches. And so that's an opportunity that first day on Sunday, I'll do about a half-day training with our coaches, and you do that before everybody else comes in for that evening. So you kill 2 birds with one stone, get your Constitution coach training and your constitutional defense training all on the same trip. So anyway, make sure you check out those dates and come join us.
Age you got to be on the range?
11 years old to be on the range. They do have kids programs, so I don't know if we have any of the kids classes on those particular dates. But if you have an 11-year-old or older, they can come with you and be on the range with you for the training.
Somebody was wondering about price.
The price is 1/10 of what it normally costs to attend these classes. Okay, so our 3-day class includes the front sight 2-day class that is $1,000 on their website. Our 5-day class includes the front sight 4-day class that is $2,000 on their website. And if you train at home, you're going to pay $250 to $500 a day from anybody, and it's not going to be anywhere near as good as this training or this facility or the fellowship or the Constitution training. You get all of that with our Constitution training and the Amazing Fellowship for 1/10 of the price, meaning you get our 3-day training for only $99. So that includes my Constitution training and front sight's 2-day handgun course. So normally you're getting all of that. Normally would be like $1,100. You're getting it for $99. If you do the 5-day training, normally would be about $2,100. You get that for only $199. So it's 1/10 the price. It's there's nothing compares. It's you got to do it. Bring the whole family and come spend that week training with us.
I think we're pretty good.
Start a Constitution class. That's the key. That is the answer. Okay, look, all these election challenges, the censorship, the COVID fascism, all of these things are the result of civic ignorance. We don't know our rights. We don't know the biblical concept of citizenship. And when we solve that problem, we will solve the cultural problems. It begins with you. It begins with me. We need a freedom revolution across this country. A revolution of biblical citizenship, actually applying the biblical worldview of what a society and a neighborhood should look like. That's what America used to be. That's what we were even 50 years ago. And we can restore that, but we've got to rediscover the secret sauce. That's what we filmed last week with Kirk Cameron. It's going to be incredible. Can't wait to share that with you. Get signed up today at constitutioncoach.com. Get your first class scheduled at your church or in your living room or online or at your local library, wherever you can do it. That's how we're going to turn this around, folks. I know that sounds so simple, but that is absolutely the answer. You have to solve civic ignorance with civic literacy. And we can learn these things. We can teach these things. It will take time, but I truly believe if we're willing to fight for this over the next decade, we can restore freedom in our country and we can pass it intact to the next generation. It's going to take a lot of work. It's going to take some, George Bush word, strategery. We got to be strategic about this. We got to choose our battles. We got to pick where to fight, and we got to have a long-term vision for how to do this. Stay in the fight. Do not give up. Figure out where God's going to plant you for the next decade and fight. All right? We're going to win this thing. I believe that. I know we're going to have to deal with some ugly stuff. God's probably giving us some judgment right now. If on January 20th, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are sworn in, which I think that's probably a 65 to 70% chance. So I think we've still got about a 30% chance of winning this thing. And it being Donald Trump and Mike Pence for 4 more years. Don't give up on that. There's still a chance of that. But there's also a bigger chance that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are going to be sworn in. That is judgment on our nation. Just having to watch them on television for 4 years is going to be judgment enough, let alone the bad policies they're going to be trying to implement. And that's why we've got to save the Senate by winning those Georgia seats so we can block at least some of that bad policy. But without question, we're facing a tough road here. But buck up. Come on, be tough. We need to think like our founders did. Think like the pioneers did. Think like the pilgrims did. We got to start acting like them. I mean, my goodness, our challenges are nothing compared to those that expanded to the west. Our challenges are nothing compared to what the pilgrims faced coming over here. I mean, half of them died the first year. Are we so wimpy that because 0.00% of those that weren't going to die this year anyway got sick and possible? I mean, come on. We've got to toughen up. To use a Ronald Reagan phrase, the future does not belong to the faint-hearted. It belongs to the brave. And if we are the brave, if we are the courageous, then we can turn this country back to God. We can turn this country back to freedom, and we can experience that freedom ourselves and pass it to our kids. But I'm telling you, even if we don't experience it, Tim Barton has a great way of saying, I think it's Tim that says, we're asking you to plant trees under which you may not get to sit under the shade of. I mean, that's what we're asking for. We're asking you to fight the fight for our children and grandchildren, to save this country, to save this constitutional republic, to restore these principles so that they can live in freedom. We don't know when the Lord's coming back. He may not come back for another 1,000 years. Do you want to consign our children to communism and socialism? Do you want to put America on the ash heap of history because we weren't willing to fight and push back against these Marxists that have gained so much ground in our nation over the last few decades? Not me. Buddy, I'm going to fight until I'm 6 feet under, and I hope you're willing to do the same thing. You wouldn't be watching this if you weren't a patriot and you weren't willing to get in the fight. So sleep well tonight, and let's get up in the morning and engage in the fight. 2 hours a week is what I'm asking you to do. Start a Constitution class and host it and get other people in that room. 2 hours a week. Out of that will come a prairie fire of freedom in your community. Out of those classes will come candidates for city council and for school board and county commissioner and eventually state legislature and Congress and the U.S. Senate and perhaps even U.S. president in a few years. Perhaps right out of your living room in your class will be a president of the United States in 20 years. That's not far-fetched. That's absolutely possible. I know it's possible because I see my Patriot Academy grads serving in state legislatures across the country, working on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. right now. We've only been at it for 17 years. So you can do the same thing right there in your living room. Become a patriot. Become a force multiplier. Let's go save this country. I'm sorry. I got a little riled up and went a little long tonight. Love you guys. God bless you. We'll sign off. Brett, we're done.